Greetings and welcome back to Memory 21 of 2019. This is a special memory that I have. I spend a lot of time listening to podcasts, which are basically like audio dramas and or talk radio, if you will. And in this case, these are specifically role-playing game podcasts where the podcasters are literally recording themselves playing role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons, and they're sharing that story and the characters and are acting out the dialogue and rolling dice for your listening enjoyment. Okay, so this is one of the subjects that I had the most difficult time trying to figure out how was I going to creatively represent a collection of podcasts in a Minecraft build. And I think what I've come up with is I'm going to make on the back wall a little iPhone, and on it you'll see like a couple different apps, or in this case we're going to pretend that those are the individual podcasts. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make glass walkways from, let's go with green and purple. And we're going to basically have this sort of coming out, and it needs to kind of swoop down to the bottom to be like a walkway. And we're going to put the characters on these walkways. There's not really much I can do about the command block, except I can get rid of it later. And let's do this. We're going to actually have it kind of swoop down more gradually. And then I said the purple one. And we actually have it kind of spread out into a three lane road over here. And then this one will end up being a 4-lane road, because I'm going to need a little bit extra space. This one's going to have more characters in it. So we've got one set of podcast characters shooting out here, and one set shooting out here. Now, as I mentioned, these are role-playing game podcasts, and I'll tell you a little bit about the 4 podcasts that I listened to most this year and just got such a kick out of. The first one is The Adventure Zone, which is produced, performed, created, played by the McElroy brothers from My Brother, and Me. It's basically a trio of comedy brothers who and their dad who are playing D&D. They did it as a one-off show to kind of fill time on their comedy podcast, and then it became super popular, and then they ended up transforming it into the RPG podcast. And then they have done a bunch of different seasons. They did the first season, and the one that I'm going to depict here and that I like the best is called Balance. It's actually like 5 seasons, I think, of D&D. And then they did Amnesty, which is set in the mountains of Virginia. So to me, it has like a Pacific Northwest, Bigfoot meets Twin Peaks feel, I think is how I might describe it. They did one called Commitment, which was like superhero agency, sort of. They did Dust, which was a Western. And they're currently doing one called Graduation, which is kind of like a Harry Potter. I'm doing a huge injustice by trivializing it like that. But I'm going to just make some characters from the Balance arcs. And then the next one that I'm going to do is There Will Be Dungeons. This is by Frog Pants Studios. I started listening to Frog Pants Network way, way, way back in 2000 when I was listening to The Instance, which is a World of Warcraft podcast. I followed almost all of their shows up till the current day, and they're playing There Will Be Dungeons, which is a post-apocalyptic D&D, Mad Max-inspired, like crazy good series. And a couple other ones that I've listened to. There's a Pokemon role-playing game podcast called Mythical by It's Super Effective. I don't think they have a series out this year, but I caught up on the last, I think it was 5 seasons. The first one was Dungeons and Dragonites. The second one was Magikarps, I think. And there was Litwicks and Loopholes. So those were cool to listen to. And then that podcast led me over to another one called, and that's where they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, but they're playing Pokemon Tamers in the Pokemon world. But it's like the ancient Pokemon world. So it's like the origins before there were Pokeballs. It's kind of cool. And then Very Random Encounters is a subset or the similar group of people, and they play all different genres. Each series is a totally different story, and everything is determined randomly. The character names, the character types, the backgrounds, the adversaries, the plot, everything is randomized, highly randomized. And they're just really good role players. They've done like a Stranger Things kind of 80s supernatural modern day thing. They've done archaeologist thing. They've done a space thing. All kinds of cool ones. So those are the podcasts that I've been listening to. So I tried to create a block-like representation of the Adventure Zone characters, and then I was going to do the same for There Will Be Dungeons characters. And I wanted to use this white concrete as the skin tone, and instead of using pumpkins like this, the problem is this dude's axe connects to his head if I use the concrete. So I used pumpkins. And I also thought about using armor stands so I could put items in their hands, so I could make one small like a dwarf, so I could put colored armor on it. It would make it an easier, but it didn't feel right. I felt like I needed to actually create these people in Minecraft using Minecraft blocks. And then finally I said, why don't I just go in the middle and we'll summon some player heads that look like I want. So this is Taco. He is an elf. He is a sorcerer, transmutation, and he's also a famous chef on TV. So this is his magic wand, and he's very metro. I think he wears a lot of purple. The hair is not quite right, but he's an elf. And then Magnus Burnside is a fighter with a big axe. He kind of evolves more towards a rogue as the series goes on. I'm not going to spoil a lot about these characters, just showing you what I built here. And then this is Merle Highchurch. He's a cleric dwarf with his Extreme Teen Bible. And in my mind, he becomes more of a druid, so I put him in the green. I checked the graphic novels for the Adventure Zone to see the colors. It does seem to change over time, but these feel pretty good. And then over on this side, I did a similar thing. So we've got Stanley Billings. He is a half-elf bard. Talks a bit like Colonel Sanders, but he's a younger, prettier version. He's got a megaphone that he uses for mocking spell. Oh, I forgot what it's called. And then he has a rapier that he sends out, and he says parlay, and he uses it to kill people. We have Hope, who is a tiefling, and she's royalty, and she has some... she's good with engines, and eventually ends up with a bionic leg. I won't spoil too much more, but she uses guns. So the closest thing I could use was a crossbow. And then Nash Magar of the Solar Mines. He's basically this like old raunchy bandage wearing mage. He confuses Flame Bolt and Flame Fireball a lot. And I've got him on a Black Dragon, but you notice that it's kind of a shadowy Black Dragon. It doesn't ride a Black Dragon, but if you listen to the show, you'll kind of understand what that means. And then Vorel is a lizard folk, and in the latest series, he's wearing an amulet on his chest called the Eye of Grosjeal, and that's pretty much all I can say about that. But he's like the barbarian, the mage, the gunslinger rogue, and the bard. So those are the two podcasts that I enjoy the most, and as I mentioned, the other podcasts that I also listen to. So that's our episode on live play role-playing game podcasts. Hope you enjoyed it. Do check out some of the shows I mentioned, or let me know if you listen to any other live play. I have seen lots of other RPG podcasts like Critical Role and a couple others. Names are escaping me, but I've tried probably 20 different, and these are the 4 that I like the most currently in 2019. So that's what I decided to put in my memory.